Yeah. You know, I like it long and wild. I can't do my.
Oh, yeah, you gotta do some headbanging.
Yes. That's it. Oh,
I love it. Funny. Okay, well, I guess I sent her the Zoom, but as so hopefully, I think she's coming.
Woo! I just turned up the audio at once so I can hear the rest of you guys better.
There she is.
Oh, right. iPhone is connecting to audio.
Connecting. Okay.
You know what, Libby, you can take a screenshot once in a while of just, can you take a screenshot?
Yeah.
Just take a screenshot once in a while. That would be so fun. I'm going to unmute her.
Which one of us is muted?
None of you are muted anymore.
None of us now.
There she is.
Ah.
All right. All right. I am recording. Can everybody hear everything? Okay, now we've got it.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Hello.
I do think if we're not talking, we should try and mute ourselves just so that we don't get feedback. So we can all take turns.
That's okay. Good idea.
Yeah.
Okay, you're expecting me to be high tech now, right?
No.
Oh, you are. You are.
Oh, well, we've got 6 of us and our guest. Should we get started?
Yes.
Marion, can I talk so I know that we can hear you okay?
Testing, can you hear?
Yes.
I can hear you guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I guess we're supposed to do a thumbs up or down if we don't know anything. So, okay. So I'm going to hold up the sign and then I'm going to switch it to speaker view, at least for me, for the recording. So what we're going to be doing is everybody's going to introduce themselves, show the bass, say anything you want to about being a female bass player, and then we're going to be asking the questions of Marion that are always asked in the basement. And but we kind of already talked about it, but you can say whatever you want, of course, and because we want to hear everything you have to say. So this is the all-female Zoom bass in the basement. Detroit bass players in Maryland. Woohoo! Okay.
Can you do that last line again? I didn't get a good screenshot of the last one, I don't think.
Ta-da!
Hold it back a little bit.
Higher. It's got to go higher. There we go.
There you go.
Here, wait, just a sec.
We're taking screenshots, but I'm recording it. So.
There we go. Lovely. Got it.
Excellent.
All right. Show continue.
So everybody, introduce yourself. Who would like to go first?
You should.
How about you?
All right. I'm Marilee. My name just says Marilee. You can see it right on there. I've been playing bass for a few years. Here's my bass. It's not the first bass I had, because that first bass has an uncomfortable relationship background associated with it. So this is my bass that I now play, my preferred instrument. And I started playing, I played guitar growing up, but I probably always should have been a bass player. So that's me. Yeah. So I'm gonna unmute and let somebody else talk now, or I'm gonna mute.
I love it.
Okay, so muting between, okay, cool.
Yeah. Let's see, I'll go. Let's see. I'm Libby. This is my bass here. This is the newest bass. It's a 5-string. It's been a little bit of an adjustment, but it's been a fun adjustment. I got it from Gordon Jazz Bass Spencer, and he misses it sometimes, but sorry, Gordon, you're not going to get it back. It's my bass now. And I've been playing since 7th grade. The Red Hot Chili Peppers, Flea got me started, but then I, hearing all that Motown all around, I think was also a big subconscious part of it. And yeah, I love it. And it's just such a fun journey. You can never stop learning with the bass.
Agreed. Agreed. I'll go. I'm Marion Hayden, And it looks like, I don't know if there's any other upright players, but I'll represent for Upright Sisters. And I've been playing bass since I was 12 years old. And I do a lot of recording, I do some touring. The bass that I'm playing now is actually a bass that I'm working with a loaner that a good friend of mine, Eddie Coburn, let me use while my bass is having some work on it. And it's an old French bass. It sounds really good. I've had a chance to do a couple live streaming events with it, and I'm going to do a record date with it probably sometime if we can get some social distancing together to do it. And yeah, I'm really glad to be a part of this. The Bassmint is really awesome, and it's great to have a female component. So thanks. Glad to be here.
We're so glad you're here.
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay, I guess I'll go next. Mine says bass lady, but my name is Cynthia Willis. I've been playing off and on since I was, I would say maybe 14. My brother was in a band, just to give you a little backstory. My brother was in a band, and the bass player's name is Terry Tuck. He's an independent artist. He is fabulous. He's worked with the Clark sisters. He's worked on Twinkie Clark's projects. He's just phenomenal. And I heard him play one time, and I begged my mother for a bass. She got me one from a music store in Fairlane back in the 70s. And I took that, my little amp, up in my room. I still have the amp that she bought me back in the 70s. And I took it up in my room, and I just started listening to albums because I love music anyway. And I just started playing whatever I heard. I have not studied at all. I just play by ear, everything that anybody asked me to play. And that's my story.
Nice.
Awesome.
I guess I'll be next. Zen, you want to go or you want me to go?
No, Maryjane, you go next.
All right, Zen, that's my best friend right there. I love her. Zen, I love you. You know it. Me and
Thank
Zen,
you, and I love you too, Maryjane.
we travel together with our basses. I am playing a Reverend Fellowship bass. This is Michelle Nicocello's signature bass. This is my recent one. It's the Unity flag. And when I went to the NAMM show, they gave me these nice funky red and green strings that go on it. So I think it's really cool. I like it. It's not active. The good thing about it is it gives me more time to understand how to play without trying to be a rock star. I think I'm gonna give up the rock star and start trying to learn more jazz chords. If you look in the background, you see my rusty, dusty upright. I haven't touched that in years, but it looks good. It looks like I'm a bass player. So sometimes I have to fake it till I make it. Let's see. I started playing bass at high school. The bass player graduated, so they need a bass player, and I started with the upright, but it wasn't loud enough. I am so aggressive. I think I have to play loud, but I don't. But in my head, I like loud stuff. I play off and on. I stopped playing for a while when I got married and had kids. Then they moved out the house and I got divorced. So this became my new love. I am so in love too. Let me see. I did, like I said, I was playing rock for a long time and gospel. I don't know, the church didn't like it, but I loved it. So right now I'm trying to do gospel and jazz. R&B is nice, but I think mostly everyone is playing the same songs out here and everybody's competing. But if you learn your jazz and you get into a nice band that plays versatile music, it's more freedom. And I guess that's it. I don't want to bore you or talk too long. Thank you.
Thank you. Tell us where you are. Where are you?
I am in New York.
Okay.
But I am at home right now. I live in Amityville, Long Island.
Okay.
And everybody always say,
Amityville.
go ahead, say it. The horror movie. Yes, this is the haunted house of Amityville that I live in. But don't be scared. No, if you see any ghosts in the background, they only bass players.
Okay.
It was a corny joke. But yes, Amityville, Long Island.
Yeah. I guess it's my turn. And I'm out in Massachusetts, the northwest corner of the state. You know, I'm a Detroit bass player because that's where my career was born. I got this bass is Thor. It's a Tobias 5-string, and I got him in Detroit. And let's see what else. I guess I started playing not quite 16 years ago, and just that was my first time playing because I played a little bit in high school, but you know, we all scattered in our senior year, and when I went to scatter, I didn't have anybody to play with, so I didn't play for the next 30 years. So anyway, I come back to it in 2004. It was May 8th, 2004. I brought my first bass home. It was a Warwick, which I still have upstairs. And man, I've just never looked back since. Hit a blues jam just, what, 8 days after I brought it home. And it's been, you know, I've been having a lot of fun, driving people crazy, driving myself crazy. You know, it doesn't matter where I am, be it Detroit, Utica, Massachusetts. I'll catch you somewhere. And of course, Maryjane and I could have stories about Philadelphia. No, you got to hear some of them.
Awesome.
So
This summer we'll get together and we'll play. How's that? A bunch of female bassists if you're up for it.
Oh yeah, I'm hoping to get out to Detroit this summer.
Okay. Okay.
I think I met. I was thinking just one more aside. I think I met Marion Hayden maybe 25 years ago when I was a piano tuner at the Detroit Jazz Festival.
That is very possible, although I was probably like 2 then, but.
You were with the band Straight Ahead? Was that the name of the band?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yep, and still is band, yep. Yep. Yeah, you probably did. Probably did it back then because I've been on the festival for a few years now, over the years.
Yeah.
Yep, it's good. Well, good to see you. I probably didn't know that you play bass then.
No, I was just a piano tutor then. And
okay.
I remember that particular year, I was the only piano tuner maintaining 4 pianos and something like 6 times a day. I mean, I was just running around with a tuning wrench in one hand. And, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, but we need bass players and piano tuners. So good, you're good.
Oh yeah. I blew out my shoulder, which is why I'm not tuning pianos anymore. But get me around a bass, and you would never think I'm disabled. At least I try very hard not to be.
Well, Marion, we're going to ask you some questions, and when you play, wait. Oh,
Joe! Don't forget Joe!
Joe! Oh my gosh, Joe! I'm getting ahead of myself. Joe!
Sorry, I don't want to be rude. I was just
Man, I didn't know you were there.
and I'm bassist for local band called 86 Noodles. This is my bass. It's a 1976 Thunderbird. And
Nice.
it actually, the cool thing about this bass is this specific bass traveled with and toured with the MC5, the Heartbreakers, and the Stooges, which is pretty freaking cool. And I'm 4'11", and I always get made fun of because my bass is like 3 feet tall. So I look really funny playing it. I've been playing, I was originally a drummer since I was real small, and I started singing with 86 Noodles. We've been around about 4 years now, and our bassist had quit the night before a show about 2.5 years ago, and we couldn't find a replacement. So I said I'd do it, and I had no experience, but I said, you know, 4 strings, how hard can it be, right? I'll just follow the bass drum, and it was definitely harder than I thought it would be. But it went well, and we just we turned into a 3-piece after that. We play a lot of Zeppelin, Hendrix, Janis. We do anything from classic rock, my passions, blues, like Sippy Wallace, Muddy Waters type stuff. So yeah, that's about it. I don't know. Just been playing about 2.5 years, and we pretty fortunate before all this happened. We were playing every weekend, so it, you know, the more you play, the easier it gets. So, but no formal lessons or anything. I just kind of self-taught. So.
You're lucky I've got a stable band to learn with. I mean, I was at the mercy of jam sessions, and who knows how the other players are going to be.
Right. But, you know, I think that that's the best form of playing, is not knowing, because it makes you better as a musician, in my opinion. If you play the same song over and over again, you know what you have to play. If you have to improv, I mean, it adds to your skill set.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Oh my God. Well, I have to say, I don't play with the band. Even though I can lecture in front of a couple hundred students, I cannot get up there very easily and play music. So I know I got to get over that fear, and one of these days I'll do it. I'll just jump up and play with somebody, whether they want me on the stage with them or not. I think that's probably going to have to be how it happens. So
hit the jams.
hit the G, I should.
Come to one of our shows,
so
you can fit in. I'll get you up there.
Oh, now I'm.
We'll get you up there. You know, I mean, you know, if Maryjane and I are together in some crazy place, I mean we could annoy everybody in sight. And if you're part of the party,
we'll get up there.
Oh yeah.
Okay, now we've gotten everybody, right? All 6 of us. So Marion, so the first time I didn't meet Marion, I was in the audience when she was on our campus giving a lecture about a well-known Motown female producer. And then she was teaching classes, and then I would see her playing. She's actually the first female bass player I ever heard, because you would play at some of the functions on our campus. And I thought it was so cool. And that was before I started to play bass, so that must have been an inspiration. So we're gonna let Marion tell us, when did you start playing the bass and why?
Okay, well, I'll try not to bore everybody, but I'll just say this, because I'm going to figure that, judging from what I heard from my other sister players, that we all feel the same way, which is that you have to fall in love with the sound of the bass. And I fell in love with the sound of the bass, just, you know, like somebody else does. When I first started playing music when I was 10, and I started off with one of the family of string instruments called the cello, which I'm sure some of you guys know, cello, right? Which is kind of like, looks like a small version of the bass, which I totally would not have actually played if they had a little bass for me, because I really wanted to play the bass when I was 10. But when I got tall enough to play the bass, I started playing the bass because I just thought the sound was fabulous, and it really spoke to me right here. And it sounds like all of you other women are saying the same thing, that you have to choose the instrument that speaks to you. And I have to give a special shout out to my parents for not discouraging me from playing the bass. So they never said anything to me like, girls don't play bass. They never, which is something that people have said to young women about things, certain instruments. They might say girls don't play drums, or, there's a lot of girls don't, and then fill in the blank there, but they never said girls don't play bass. They said, if you want to play the bass, then you play the bass. And then since I really like jazz a lot, my father had a whole bunch of jazz records around. And so I had a chance to really spend just a lot of time really delving into jazz records and learning jazz in a very organic way first, which is by transcribing the stuff off the record. So I'm sure that probably a lot of you all did that too. You know, you just put on the record, find stuff that you like, and then just, just start playing something. Like, I remember one of the first records that I really liked was a record by Miles Davis called Kind of Blue, and there's a tune on there called So What? And So What I learned on the bass. It was definitely a bass solo feature by a guy named Paul Chambers, who spent a lot of time in Detroit. He was originally from Pittsburgh, but Paul Chambers was somebody who really put upright bass playing on the map. And so I just really dig the bass a lot. I just made it my business to play as much bass as possible. And I found that in general, although most of my compatriots, with the exception of my great females from straight ahead, my women, my sisters, a lot of my musical partners have been males, but I've had some really great experiences playing the bass, and it's just something that I still have a great love for. So I speak through the bass in a lot of different ways. I play the bass. I also compose, and a lot of times I compose through the bass as well as through the piano a little bit. But I don't claim to be a pianist.
Okay. Wow. So tell us what it means to you to be a Detroit bass player.
I think that Detroit has a really important legacy in the bass. And first of all, Detroit has a crazy important legacy in music in general, and particularly all of the Black music styles. So because it was, Detroit was the place that so many African Americans migrated here in the beginning of the 20th century, right? So, it was the recipient of a huge influx of African American culture. In fact, my grandfather is one of those people. My grandfather moved here, and my grandfather and grandmother moved here in like 1921 or so. So, when you have that much of, you got blues, you got early jazz, like ragtime music. When you have all those different styles of music that are, gospel, you got to figure, you have, folks like the Clark sisters, Fred Hammond, you got all that, the Winans, all that rich gospel music, all that crazy R&B, you got people, and then in terms of the bass, you got folks, and we'll talk jazz, we got people like Ron Carter and Paul Chambers are here right from the city, a guy named Ernie Farrell, some really excellent players. What it means is that you carry that tradition with you. So any of you all that are from this area and you claim this area, truly claim this area, then that's like a calling. I go someplace and people say, where you from? And I say, I'm from Detroit. That actually means something to people. They figure you ought to know, you ought to know something. They figure you have a clue about what music is supposed to sound like. And also, if I may say, and I may be able to get amen on this, is that Detroit audiences know what music is supposed to sound like too. They are not really that easy to play for. You can't throw a Detroit audience just anything, because on a normal night, on a Tuesday or Wednesday, they can go out and hear some really great music. So not only is it a great calling card, it's an honor to be from here, but also that honor comes with responsibility, which is that you come here, if you come from here, you better throw down. You got to be, you really want to pay homage and be respectful of traditions that you represent, whatever they are. If you represent the MC5 rock tradition, you represent the jazz, the funk, the soul, R&B, hip hop. This is the home of Dilla. You know what I mean? So if you're representing any of those traditions, then you want to really be about your business here, and I like that. I think it keeps everybody honest.
Amen to that.
Amen.
Right? Amen.
Okay, well, that was my first question. Who else has a question for Marion? What would you like to ask her?
I got to follow up kind of along the lines of that. I have this book, the Detroit Jazz book, which has been a very good read. I've been enjoying it. And So I was curious if you can talk about your experience with Marcus Belgrave and how you feel like that's helped you to become more of a Detroit musician, and like if there's any key thoughts or, you know, lessons that you could maybe sprinkle for us to take while we're here together.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'll just say that for, you know, some of you all may not know who Marcus was. Marcus was a trumpet player, a par excellence, one of the finest trumpet players in the world, who was originally from Chester, Pennsylvania, but spent a good portion of his adult life, most I'd say, here in Detroit. He toured for many years with the Ray Charles Band. He toured with the Lionel Hampton Band. He worked with Quincy Jones, Charles Mingus, I mean, some of the greatest musicians in the world. He also did a lot of Motown session work. And Marcus was my mentor. I met him when I was 13, doing some playing. And what I'll say is I learned some really great truths from being on the stand with someone like that. One of the things I learned is that it's that, you know, to the extent that you can, try to get some music from somebody that knows way more than you do. That's the best.
Amen to that.
Try to get with somebody who knows something. You know, a lot of times we and I certainly spent a lot of time when I was young, hanging with other young folks my age, and, you know, we were trying to figure out the music and that kind of stuff. But one of the things that really helped me a lot was being able to spend some time with Marcus, people like, such as Marcus, Wendell Harrison. Marcus passed in, I think it was 2015. Wendell Harrison is also amongst that group, but he's still living, one of the great living legends. Folks like
I just got to
Donald
meet
Walton.
him recently. I just got to meet Wendell Harrison, and I was playing a show with Pam, his wife. So it's like lovely to meet them. They're a beautiful couple. So
One of my mentors mentored me when I was a young person. People like Donald Walden, who was a great saxophone player. Roy Brooks, who was a fabulous drummer. Ken Cox. And then there's still some other living guys like Buddy Butson and Ursula Walker. So try people that know more than you. That, you know, that really helps out a lot. I was, you know, I got some real valuable lessons. Like one of the important, the fact I got from Marcus, and one of the things I talked to Mark Stryker about in that book was to me the honor of being long-term. In other words, even though I was a working musician, had my own gigs, recording, teaching, I still consider myself to be a protege. And one of the things that Marcus sprinkled, one of his great pieces of wisdom he gave me, maybe a year before he passed or so, was this. A minute to get what he said was the rehearsal was more important than the gig. Now, of course, at the time, I didn't really understand what he meant by that, because I have 2 kids and a husband. So a gig was really important to me. That's how I pay my bills, right? A gig is a lot. So I remember he said that, and I remember going home from the rehearsals thinking, I don't know what the hell he's talking about. What do you mean? And then over time, I got to understand what that means. What that means is the rehearsal is where we as musicians communicate with each other. That's where we lay out our ideas. That's where we find out what's going to work and what's not going to work. That's where we fine tune things. That's where we're able to establish a working rapport with each other, which is so critical to be able to make music together, right? You can't make music if you don't have a good working rapport with them. And so all of those things are established in the context of a rehearsal. And as well as really fleshing out the ideas of any repertoire you're doing, right? You don't just get up and start playing a tune. You have to really flesh out the ideas, concepts of a tune. Try to bring your broad musicality and creativity and really think about tunes. And so that was one of the things. Over time, I began to really understand that, and it caused me to really take my rehearsing real seriously. In a way that I've always been a good rehearser, always, show up, take care of business. But now I actually prepare for my rehearsals. And that was something that I did not do, but actually preparing for a rehearsal that prepares for a gig, right? So that, you know, that brings you steps deeper into what you're trying to, what you're trying to achieve as a musician in terms of your understanding and being connected, creatively connected to anything that you're doing. And so that was as I said, that was a pretty recent revelatory thing I got from a man that I know for many years. I also really loved from just working with Marcus, and also some of these other guys, just and women also, just a fearlessness about being creative, and that's hard to do. But in other words, it's the idea that you would. In fact, I would say that I probably got that lesson even more from a woman named Jerry Allen. Jerry Allen was a really great pianist. We grew up together here in Detroit. Jerry passed in, I think, 2016. So she, you know, untimely, just way too early. But she was a woman who was a great creative risk taker, and just brilliant, a brilliant pianist, came right from here in Detroit. And that was one of the lessons I got from Jerry, was that we need to be risky, and start being risky. If you're not being risky now, then get going with it right now. Don't wait, right? Don't wait to be risky. Hang out there on the crazy loose end of things and find whatever has meaning for you, right? Whatever has meaning for you, you got to own that and be out there with it. Don't wait for anybody to give you permission to do that, because it will never come. No one ever gives anyone permission to be broadly creative. That's something you got to do for yourself. So those would be my.
I love that. Thank you. I feel like that's one of the hardest things, because you know when you're kind of getting on that edge, because you get nervous and you're like, oh, I'm not supposed to be doing this. I'm supposed to be all proper. And
well, how much
do.
I got a question for you all. Is that you know, when it comes to creativity, how much do you feel that, you know, you're pressured into being conformist somehow? Like instead of just saying, taking chances with that, we're supposed to do as others say. And I say, are you kidding? I know for myself, and I mean, okay, my incubation period on bass is only 8 days. I still haven't had a formal lesson, but you know, it's like, okay, let's take this idea, and see, let's joyride it, see where it's going to go. Okay, let's see if we can crash it and what kind of explosion we get.
Yeah, that's probably a good way to think about it.
And then some people, of course, are like, oh no, you're about to destroy something. Like, no. It might, you know, for all we know, it could be a nuclear reaction with something else. It's like, whoa, what's all this?
You know, I'm a scientist, and in the lab, I am always trying something completely different. And I still don't feel comfortable enough with bass to really just try and do different things yet. That's really still a struggle for me. Marion, you teach a lot. Do you enjoy teaching as much as playing, or the same, or different? Are they just very different?
I think they're really different. I think that teaching makes you kind of codify and be more structured about your approach to music. And it depends on when I first learned music in a classical setting, because that's a great way to learn foundations on the upright bass. Mm-hmm. That teaching was very structured. My learning of jazz was not. It was very organic, and I collected that information in a lot of different ways. So I think, though, that I'll comment to your question. I think that one of the things that I do share with my students is that it is very difficult to do on stage what you do not do in your practice, your personal practice. So if you want to go for things that are a little broadly creative and a little riskier, then you gotta throw them out there every time you get on the bass. You just gotta play something crazy, or something you think is crazy, but probably it may or may not be. But just play something that you feel like is risky. I encourage you also to take use your phone or whatever kind of recording device you're using and record as much of your stuff as you can. I use mine all the time. I record on my voice memos on my phone. I record all kinds of, ideas for position and stuff like that. I use it all the time for that. I totally record my rehearsals now. My rehearsal recordings are really integral to me being able to do a good job on any kind of performance, because my rehearsals are blueprints, and so I want to hear everything I did wrong in particular. I don't really give a crap about something I did right, but I want to hear anything I flubbed, anything I was having a problem with. I want to know exactly what that is and what the discussions ensued about it, and then you can actually go about making that thing right. And the same thing with some creative, something creative that you have. If you got some creative ideas, then I say spit them on out there. As I say, go out on the raggedy edge of things and try to get them down on tape, and then you can, then you'll be able to better find the time to do it, right? When the time comes when this thing should come out, then you'll know, that thing will already be close in your mind. It'll be close on your fingers and, in your ear,
Yeah. I think I'm always worried about embarrassing myself. Did you ever have any embarrassing moments, or has anybody ever had any embarrassing moments?
You gotta make that your goal. Go out there and get embarrassed. To do it deliberately.
I'm probably afraid to play because the first time I walked out on a stage in high school, I fell down 3 steps with my guitar in my hand. And I think that was probably, I recovered, but that's me, right? I'm always going to trip and fall. So, oh, well.
It's like that keeps you humble though. I feel like it's like, reminds you, it's like, all right. Just like
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Am I still on?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
I would ask, Marion, I was watching your videos during the week before this, and I see you when you do your bass solos. How do you create those on the spot, or do you do it all during your rehearsal? Do you sit in your bed and say, I want my solos to sound like this? How do you create your solos?
Well, thank you for not being too scared to watch any video of mine, for real. But you know what? I think that what happens, this is my thought, is that what happens over the time of playing is that you kind of develop a language, a solo language. And so at any time when I'm doing a solo, I would like to think that I'm generating from nothing, but there's no doubt that I'm probably generating from some of my solo language, right? Some things that I've practiced, things that I've heard, I've encountered, things that I've heard other people play, snippets from recordings, that kind of thing. Some stuff that I think is kind of, I would kind of say licks, but there's nothing wrong with a lick as far as I'm concerned, because there's some licks that really glue you to whatever you're doing, right? There's some great funk licks that people like to play when they, and there's certainly jazz licks, so but it's just that no matter how you try, you're not going to sound like Freddie Washington or James Jamerson. You might, find, or, Marcus Miller or whatever. You might sound a little bit like him, but ultimately you're going to sound like you anyway. So it's okay to steal some stuff. And so I figure when you hear me, that you hear the amalgam of some different things I've been practicing. When I get on there, I do try to, make solos, it's really not hard to make every solo sound different, because there's no way you can get on the stand and play exactly the same thing you played in any other given time. But there may be aspects of it, some of my solo language that you'll hear, and you'll be able to. Certainly, that's the same thing with any other bass player, right? When you listen to them, you'll say, "Oh, that's I recognize that lick," you know what I mean? And that's so and so. That's one of his or her licks. That's one of Michelle and Dagiel cellos. I totally try to steal stuff from Michelle and Dagiel cello. I love her, so I'll be trying to play stuff on upright all the time. In fact, we recorded Step Into the Projects on Straight Ahead. Straight Ahead did a recording of Step Into the Projects way back. I totally dig her stuff. So yeah, I'm always trying to, you know, I'm always trying to steal some of her licks and anybody's licks, but then I'm going to have to put them in my context. So I think, you know, when you solo, it's a you know, it's a kind of an organic amalgam of all that. But of course, a lot of it also has to do with your being able to, you know, relate to things, to chord changes, especially in jazz. Chord changes are, you know, are one of the things that we spend some good amount of time trying to get, you know, feel comfortable with, you know, feel comfortable with chord changes of all sorts. So that's informs. That's, you know, that's part of our breakfast, you know.
That was my second question. Like, if I want to start playing standard jazz tunes, where should I start as far as learning these jazz chords changes?
You know what? I would get like a really good. If you're a book person.
Yes.
I've a couple big books written by some of the cats. Like Rufus Reid has a really nice book. Rufus Reid, he used to be he's a hell of a bass player. Rufus was on the road with Eddie Harris. He was on the road with Dexter Gordon for many years, just killing bass player. Rufus is in New York now. So man, I would get Rufus's book. It's a really nice book. It lays out all of the chords with the different voicings that we use in jazz. It's got some really nice practice bass lines, you know, especially walking bass lines. This is probably, you know, one of the harder things that we put together in jazz, is putting together walking bass line. And then it kind of starts you off with a set of tools. And then, you know, then you can just progress up with some standard material. And just so you know, I certainly came through a real serious jazz pedagogy of jazz community in terms of learning standards. But, you know, just to kind of move that thing forward, people aren't always doing jazz standards now, but they are a really great way to learn how to manipulate chord changes and get comfortable with them. So I feel like even if you're not, you know, trying to be like definitely like a straight ahead jazz player, that you can use some jazz tunes as a template for your being able to learn how to manipulate jazz chord changes of all sort, and be able to also stay in a form, you know. So I say get a book. If you don't get a book, just get that Miles Davis record, Kind of Blue, and check out that tune, So What. Okay. As a matter of fact, you know, Erykah Badu, they quote So What in what is it? Called Tyrone. I think it's called Tyrone. I think that tune. This is her bass player quotes that. So, you know, it's a well-known tune, you know, for bass players. But yeah, I would start there. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I tried that. I went to Dro VZ's bass boot camp. I tried that as my my exit piece last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was okay, but you gotta have that timing. You gotta have that timing. I was a little off timing, which I know, but I did. I tried. So what?
Yeah. I'm sure you can do it. You know how it is. Sometimes you just gotta burn it into your brain, you know, through repetition. Yes. Burn it into your brain.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Who else has got a question?
Okay, I have a question.
Okay.
When it comes to the acceptance, which did you find easier, playing with a male band or female band?
That's a good question. I like that question, bass lady. Okay, so here's what I'm gonna say about it. I'm gonna say that my playing with now, of course, I couldn't say this. This should not be an overall kind of a statement, because you know folks are different. But I'll just say that probably my experiences playing with women have been more collaborative.
Wow.
And I like that. That's cool for me. Everybody, you know, I'm now having said that, I'm a good foot soldier. If you tell me play this, changes, play it, throw it down there and play it just like it is, I'm gonna do that. And I don't have a problem, doing it. But I'll just say that I like the collaborative process. I like you and me getting in the rehearsal room, talking about a tune. You got suggestions, I bring you a tune. You say, you know what, this sounds really good. I got a background for it. Or, you know, you bring a tune and I say, you know what, how do you like this bass line I put on it? Or if I come to it, I bring a tune and I say, I'm not sure what I'm thinking about some sort of, you know, beat behind it. Can you give me, you know, Galen, can you give me a couple of options? And my girl Galen she'll throw me 4 or 5 options out there. I like that. I you know, for me, I like the collaborative process. That makes the whole thing more interesting to me, and I think I feel more invested that way. I enjoy that, and I found that when, you know, projects like, for instance, Straight Ahead, extremely collaborative process. That those women are extremely collaborative. We get in, we get some music, we have a listen with you bring a chart, or we're listening to it, you know, and we say, you know, maybe we're listening to a track, we're going to do a transcription on it. We say, hey, let's just transcribe it up from this part to this part. Then after that, we're gonna insert a solo section here, you know. So we have a lot of good discussions about music, which I happen to dig. And I find that when I've worked with males, they have by and large tended to be like, hey, you know, this is you know, a little bit more proprietary about their music, not necessarily, like I said, it won't be you know, some guys better than others, but, you know, they, you know, have tended to want it to be more, you know, do the music just the way they present it. So I like the collaborative things. I just think it's a really great way to enrich what you do. And also, even in the collaborative, you know, if you're not feeling a suggestion, you don't have to take it. But I just think that I found that when I worked with Straight Ahead, when that band has been together for a number of years, that was the first time when I felt like open to making suggestions, right? You know, I felt really comfortable. That was a band in which I began to become a lot more comfortable in making suggestions. And I took that level of comfortability and was able to bring it to all the other projects that I had too. So in other words, it was something that increased my level of confidence, right? I started feeling more confident about my own ideas, and then that level of confidence was spread to all the other projects that I did. So even though I might have been a foot soldier in somebody else's project, if I heard something that I thought would be helpful, I would speak up and make a suggestion. You know, so I felt so. In other words, that collaborative process has been very empowering for me. That's what I've taken. I've also had that in other groups that I've been in that have been women, like Musique Noire. That's a really happening band. It's a string band from here in Detroit. Mostly women, certainly women led, and they, you know, their process is very collaborative. So yeah, that's what I'd say.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Okay. And one more question, if you don't mind. What is your practice time like?
You know, it just depends. I usually am most motivated when I have a specific thing to practice. I like that. So in other words, if I got a project, one of the more recent projects I've been touring a couple of projects recently. In fact, one is an all-female project that's led by Ellen Rowe, who is a pianist and one of our former department chair of jazz at University of Michigan. So Ellen's got a project called the Momentum Project. It's all her original material, all original arrangements. So in fact, we were supposed to be in New York in March before the pandemic hit. But we were in Ann Arbor doing some gigs. We've done several tours with the band. And when I get on the stand, I usually like to get out some specific music, because a lot of times I like to learn through a song. So in other words, if it's a song that's got a lot of syncopations, then that's a really good tune for me to work on my reading of syncopations. If it's a tune that's really fast, then I feel like that's a really good time for me to kind of work on my speed licks, you know, getting my chops up really up. And I'm just queen of breakdown. I mean, if it's a fast tune, I will definitely, especially don't let it be on YouTube, because I will break it down to 50%, then go up to 75%, then go on up. Okay, I ain't got no shame about doing that, because because when you get it, you want to get it right. You don't want your stuff to be sloppy. You want to be clean. So I find I like to spend some good time in working on a specific material. I'll spend some time, a little time on like bebop heads. I really like bebop a lot. That's some pretty old style of jazz, but it's really good for chops and it's really good for reading. So I'll read some bebop heads. And then I like to sometimes I'll just spend some time just free open playing, right? Just playing the bass, work some licks, try to get funky on some stuff. See how much sound I can generate at one time. Do some long tones with the bow, so I can really keep my bow skills up, because this is yet another beast, right? There's this beast, then there's this beast, right? That will kick your butt the other way. So everybody gets its own time. But so usually I try to do a little bit of all those things when I practice, so that hopefully when I come out I've got, and generally I do try to practice something that I don't sound good on. So I've been pretty consistent with doing that, trying to practice something that's going to really kick my butt, because that is actually where you're going to see progress. If you keep practicing stuff that you already sound well, you're not gonna,
you can still find songs like that. There's still songs that need that for you.
Yeah, about thousands. Are you kidding? I mean, I'm not kidding. Anybody else, there's plenty. And then there's stuff that like kicks your butt. Then you master it. Then you stop doing it for a while. Then you go back to it, and it still kicks your butt again. You gotta keep doing it so that so you can kind of keep it under your fingers. So yeah. For sure, I claim humbly that I'm I'm a lifelong student of the bass, right? You got to be a lifelong student of your instrument. That's what it's all about, lifelong student.
Can I ask one more quick question?
Sure.
What was it like playing with Dizzy Gillespie? And have you played at his spot here in New York? And I was going to ask you when are you coming to New York, but you just answered that question.
You know what? Actually, hopefully it doesn't say anywhere, because honestly, I don't think I've ever played with Dizzy. I've met Dizzy, may have possibly have sat in with him, but but he is not. I've worked with a lot of folks, but I have worked with some other just super killing cats. I definitely work with Donald Byrd, who's a killing trumpet player from Detroit. Donald Byrd started the Blackbirds. If any of y'all are super fans
Love
of the
those
Black
guys.
Yeah.
Chuck Rainey's my favorite bass player. He plays with him a lot.
Chuck Rainey, yes.
Yep, those dudes. Yeah, so Donald Byrd. Yeah, I definitely played with Donald and a bunch of other folks. You know what I would say? Usually with any of those people that are that high echelon, mostly I was just trying to be competent, And I have a son who's a drummer, and a lot of times, when you're really young, you feel like you got to be like the baddest person, but a lot of times, being really competent is badass.
Yes.
That's actually what's badass. Competency is badass. Just, doing what you're supposed to do, playing what you're supposed to play, coming in at the right time, not coming in at the wrong time, you know what I mean? Knowing the music. That's just like competency. That's base level competency is really being a badass. So, for me, having an opportunity to play with those, like I had a chance to work with Nancy Wilson. Some of you all may or may not know who she is. Fabulous jazz vocalist, just power excellence, so gorgeous. She has been my hero for many years, and I had like an opportunity dropped on me to play with her when her bass player was coming in from California, and he was traveling with his upright bass, and he couldn't get it on the plane for some reason, and so he couldn't make the gig, and I got called to make her gig like the day before, and I've never played any of her music. And this was I'll just admit, this was like in 2003. So nobody was sending around PDFs like that at that point. You know what I mean? You were supposed to get some music. Somebody was going to throw it in snail mail for you or possibly fax it. So it was way too late for that. So I had to show up out of Meadowbrook Hall, which is one of our great outdoor theater venues here, and sight read Nancy Wilson's book at the rehearsal and play her gig, and that was petrifying, but also was a complete thrill for me to do that. And I later got a really nice compliment via email from her primary accompanist, who was a guy named Lou Matthews, who lives in here in Michigan now, Lou Matthews. And he said some really nice things about me, which I really appreciated, but mostly I felt like it was competency that did it. So I just think that the main deal is just to be competent, be competent, and being competent is totally bad. That's a badass thing.
Thank you.
Well, we're coming up on an hour. Will you play us out? Will you play something for us, Marion?
Yeah, sure. Let me see.
Okay.
I'm not sure how these Zoom things work. My experience with Zoom playing has been pretty bad, I'll say. We've been trying to do some Zoom classes with my kids, and they haven't worked well. But I'll try to play a little bit. Let's see. In fact, I'll play my first bass tune, and
Okay.
just a little.
Perfect.
There you go. That's a little Miles Davis via Paul Chambers.
Yes, that was so what, huh? Yeah.
That was pretty impressive. Well, I think we've had a great time for our first all-female bass in the basement. We'll try to get this posted, which might be a little work. If Libby took a screenshot, she can send it to the bass players as a teaser, and then we'll try to get the recording up. Thank you, everybody. Marion, thank you so much for.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
It was great. It was wonderful.
Yes, I really enjoyed. I'll be tuning in for all the rest of them. It's a really lovely thing. Great idea, Marilee. So thank you all. You all are all fabulous. Love you. Okay. Peace.
Thank you.
Peace.
All right, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Marilee.
Thank you.
Before you go, can we recreate the beginning with